Hey guys, today we have a cool treat for you. I actually recorded a interview about 20-30 minutes after I went in and came straight back. This is about 2 years ago. So, and went over what the interview process was like, what the technical phone screen was like, what the HR process was like, and what the actual algorithm problem was like. And I whiteboarded it out for you. So, kind of get in the mind of what an actual full-scale interview process is. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I want to thank our long-term sponsor, Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp. I've had the pleasure of visiting their Provo, Utah campus back in the day, as well as talking with some of the management there, and they really are focused on getting their students prepped up and gaining the skills to join the working world, and that's what I think a coding bootcamp should be about. So if you're interested in checking out their quality assurance program, the UI UX, iOS, full stack web development program, I highly suggest you check them out at devmountain.com. Hey guys, today we have a pretty cool video for you. I just got back from an interview and I wanted to talk about interview processes, and also I'm going to talk about specifically what mine was like for this current potential role. I'm not going to name the company, that wouldn't be fair to them, but I am going to talk about how, because their process is pretty similar to what I've expected, and I'm actually going to give an example of the one whiteboard question that I got, and it was pretty fair in all honesty, and I want to discuss how that process typically goes, because I've probably had 10 whiteboard interviews in my lifetime, actual in-person whiteboard interviews, and at this point in time I feel like I can make some generalizations about how they go. So let's talk about the interview process as a whole. Typically you submit your application via a recruiter, via yourself, and from there you'll, if they're interested, they'll call and set up a phone call. In this case, that's exactly what happened. Now, the phone calls differ. Sometimes they just want to know about you, why you're interested in the role, how you might be a good fit for the company, things like that. This interview was on the more technical side, where they asked some basic JavaScript questions. They've asked, what would you do in this situation? How would you architect this? How can you make... name all the different ways that you can make an array was a question that was asked. Things that aren't super technical, but if you're a developer and you've worked and you've written code, that I would say I got asked about 10 questions, and 8 of them I think I did a decent job answering. 2 of them I said I don't know, and that's something I want to talk about as well, is I think that it's better to tell the person I don't know, especially when you're, like, if you think you might know, say, I think this is what you mean, is this correct? And they'll say yes or no, and they'll guide you a little bit. But if you truly don't know the answer, don't bullshit them. No one likes a bullshitter. Just say, look, man, I don't know. I got asked today. I went in, so that was the phone call. I got, just kind of talked about what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about, who I am, why I want to work with them, and then the technical questions, about 10 of them. And the conversation as a whole lasted about 20 minutes. So that's kind of a pretty standard conversation from my experience with companies of how things go, right? They ask about your experience as well, so make sure that you're ready to sell yourself. Now, I just got back about 10 minutes ago. The interview finished up about 35 minutes ago, so this is all pretty fresh. I didn't even change shirt because I wanted to have this conversation while it's all up here, right? While it's all in the safe of Dylan, which is a impervious safe for about 30 minutes, and then it is just an open door. So let's talk about that. Now, I don't have my tie on right now, but you can see I have kind of a collared shirt on, and I have slacks, and I had somewhat dress shoes. Make sure you dress business casual. Now, the recruiter who was facilitating this role for me, she told me, just go in what you normally would wear to work. Don't worry about it. You don't have to wear a tie. Even when they tell me, hey, I don't want to have to wear a tie, I wear a tie. I kind of dress up a little bit because I want them to know that I take this seriously. I want them to know that I am a team player, and I'm serious. I'm at a job interview. I'm not on a date. I want them to hire me. And if it comes down to the fact that, hey, can we put this guy in front of customers? Can we put this guy in front of clients? I want them to already have that visual picture of me looking professional to a degree. Now, when you get there and it's a different environment, everyone's in sandals and shorts, that's a whole different thing. But during the interview process, whether they tell you to or not, please dress business casual at the very least, and go from there. Now, in terms of the interview, it had a very similar format to a lot of my other interviews, and I didn't time it, but I think it maybe lasted 30 or 40 minutes, which is about the same time. Sometimes your interview will be somewhere between 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how intense it is, and depending on the role as well, right? So it was a very fair interview. The first half of the interview was, and usually when you do these, it's different at every company, so I'm making some generalizations. And the reason I wanted to talk about this, not only because it's fresh and I just did it, but because they follow a similar pattern that other large companies I've interviewed at have followed, which is they typically have 1, 2, or 3 developers in the room, usually somebody you're going to be working with, their boss, and then someone from HR. And the reason that HR is there is they usually want to make sure that you're a good culture fit for the company. And what does that mean? Well, it basically means, can you speak a sentence, and are you friendly, right? Are you somebody who is going to go into the corner and grunt and sigh and no one's going to want to work around? And that's not the type of employee that anybody wants to hire. And so HR is there to ask those questions, to get down to the bottom, to kind of to pick at you, why us, And in my case, I've always have a not very good answer, but it's an honest answer. So I always lean towards honesty rather than giving a fake good answer. And I basically said, I just want to work with passionate developers, and which is the truth. And I don't necessarily care what it is that I'm working on. That's truly, and they'll ask the basic questions. What do you know about our business? This is HR speaking. What do you know about our business? What attracted you to this role? In my case, I get asked, and this is a more specific thing to me, because I've relocated for a role. Sometimes employers are concerned I'm going to go back to Los Angeles, which is really a funny thing, because they would have to pay me so much money to go back to that shithole. No, I'm not going back to LA in a very long time, if ever. So that's one thing that they're concerned specifically about me. The other thing that they're concerned about is, since I'm currently employed, and this video won't come out till I leave my current job. Sorry, it's just not going to work out if you're somebody watching this video right now. So I can't put this video out until after the fact, right? After I land a new role. But anyhow, so I took the interview, and one thing they'll ask is, hey, you're an employed developer. You're not looking for a job because you don't have a job. Why is it that you're leaving? Now, make sure you have a good answer for this. Now, in my case, I just want to work with smart people who code after work, all right? That's my main gripe with my current work is I'm very passionate about software. I have my YouTube channel. I code every day. When I get home, I do algorithms. This weekend, I built 3 React projects and 1 before that, and I'm in the process of starting a podcast. Today I did another, so that's one side project coming down the pipeline. It's the podcast, and I'm also in the process of, now I've decided, I did a poll today of what my next project was, is either write a book about 50 developer stories of how they became a developer, or instead make a course on how to start a coding channel and what I learned in the process and the tools available and all that sort of space. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm actively trying to better my skill set. And I like going to meetups and things like this. And unfortunately, the people I currently work with, and this is all okay. This is no gripe on them, because they're at a different stage in their life. They have children, they have wives, they live farther away. And for me, I want to be with people who are more like-minded in that aspect. And I want to be with a lot of great developers. The way that I explained it in my interview is, I want to work with people that I know are better than me. I want to be the worst developer when I come in. And I want to, the word I use, which is very aggressive, is I want to surpass those people who were above me. I don't want to stay at the bottom. I want to be there, and I want to overcome them. So these are the questions that HR is going to ask you, especially if you're already employed. And so that's really what I'm looking for. So I don't want to say have a good answer prepared, but have an honest answer to answer that question. And, I think that is going to go a long way for you. People appreciate honesty in everything that they do in life. If I could really give you one piece of advice other than work hard the rest of your life, it is why you're working hard the rest of your life. Be honest, and I think you'll get farther for it, and people will just like you more. No one likes someone that they think is full of shit. Now, so that was the HR aspect. A lot of why are you in Florida? Why are you leaving your job? Tell us a bit about yourself. Why would you like to work here? What do you know about our company? That was the general theme. And one that, from going to interviews, seems to be the if you were to throw in 70% of all the questions that kind of get asked and answered by HR and yourself, that's kind of what it falls into. Now, the other part of the interview was similar to the phone call. This is the more technical side of the interview. And it started off by asking some JavaScript questions, and again, there's probably about in this one about 5 or 6, and I answered some of them, and there's one I didn't answer. They asked me if I've ever done any vanilla JavaScript, meaning I haven't worked with frameworks, and I do here or there, but I'm not like a master at vanilla JS. And the question was, and this was a very specific question, so I'm not saying that you're going to get this on your interview, but it was, how can you limit the amount of global variables specifically in vanilla JavaScript? And I just told them, I don't know. That's the truth. Is that something I could pick up? Of course it is. I could probably go on Stack Overflow, go on Google, and figure it out. The problem is, the bulk of my experience is in working with Angular, jQuery, React, frameworks within it. That doesn't mean I can't pick up vanilla JavaScript. I actually would love a job that does that, but there's very few out there, I feel like. Mainly everyone's using frameworks, and probably for good reasons. Now, the other questions, some questions were duplicates. In their case, they seemed to have a sheet of various questions that they were answering off, and I had gotten some of them already in the phone interview. Now, let's get to the whiteboard question, because I think this is where a lot of people are going. And mind you, they asked me a very fair whiteboard question, and I answered it. I didn't do my best answer, and part of that is, I don't know how you guys are, but I get very nervous at the whiteboard questions, and I kind of shut down a little bit. And it's one of the reasons that I did the code fights videos. People are saying, hey, why are you putting up all these code fights videos and doing these algorithms? I studied for 6 weeks and did 90 algorithms so that I could do an algorithm on the whiteboard, and I did it. But it's a whole different thing when you're in front of 3 people and you're like, this is basically going to determine if they're going to move me along. And so you have to kind of get accustomed to being in that environment, and it's hard, right? Because you got to fail a lot before you succeed. And what you have to hope is, all right, maybe I can answer their questions good enough. So the question I got, and mind you, most of these are going to be verbal scenarios. It's very rare that they're going to hand you like a piece of paper and be like, all right, here's your instructions. If it's a whiteboard interview, they're going to just sort of spit out an algorithm off the top of their head and go with it. In my case, they asked me to define a variable, or define a function in which we would return only the numbers evenly divisible by that number. Okay, so let's, and mind you, I got it right my first try, in array, return those numbers in array. Now, mind you, I got it right my first time, but typically you will just go off autopilot and you won't do the best version, which was a good example of how these actually go. So let me give you an example based off that. So let's say we want to divide by 7 up to a number. So how do we define that function? So all the numbers that are divisible by 7 with one input. So we define our function like so. So you guys see that? Yeah. All right. So we have function, and in here we'll call it divide by 7. And this is exactly, other than this actually being in my house, this is exactly how it went down in terms of the interview. And then we'll take in a single parameter num. So you guys basically got all the information that I got from the interviewer after I cleaned up sort of a little bit of the wordiness that confused me in the beginning. Now, okay, well, we want to store it in an array, so let's create an array. We'll call it array, and we'll just initialize it to an empty array. We want to then, and I'm going to do the version that I did. We then want to create a for loop. And we're only talking about numbers down to 0. So we're going to say let I equal to 0. While I is less than our input, go ahead and put I plus plus. Check each value and go from there. Now what I did was I wrote an if statement and I said if I modulo 7 is equal to 0, go ahead and push I to the array, right? And then at the bottom here, return it. Return array. So this actually accomplishes what the goal was. We wanted to return all the numbers that are evenly divided by 7. Now the next question is all right, well, how can we improve what you have written here? Say we want to run this thousands and tens of thousands of times. You have a lot of unnecessary code. How can we improve it? So you start looking at it. You say, oh, you know what we could do? We could actually start at 0. And then we can, instead of this if statement, we're only going to push. We don't need to check anything. We're only going to push this because we're going to start at 0. And then we're going to say I is plus equals to 7. So that's one thing. They say, okay, cool. Now how can we say but 0 is still there. How can we fix 0, right? All right, well, we don't want 0 to be in our results because it's not really divisible by 7, but because of the way modulo works, it is. Well, the easiest thing to do is just set this equal to 7 and go from here. Now, and then he asked me about curated functions, which I didn't know the definition for. After he explained it to me, he kind of gave me a bonus question, and then I didn't really understand it, and then and this is another thing that I think is equally important. So this is how it will go. They'll give you something. Typically, you won't write the most optimized result unless you're just a coding god, like a real coding god. And then you'll then say, okay, they'll ask you, how can you improve upon this? How can we do this? How can we make this run faster? And why did you do this? And you have to explain it. And you say, okay, well, then we can refactor it like so. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is that if you do get to a point, and I did, where he was explaining another additional aspect to this algorithm that didn't count. A question they asked me was, how could we make this faster without storing this function? And one thing I said, because we're running it tens of thousands of times, how can we keep track of how fast this will run? I said, okay, well, let's have a global variable, which is an object, and first we check if that key exists, and then the value. If it doesn't, we run our for loop. If it does, we just return that key. So let's say it was 77, and we check to see, okay, have we stored a value for 77? If we have, return the array associated with that. So that's another question. But his question was, how can we? I understand what happened. I don't understand how he phrased it, and I'm not going to try to phrase it. But the gist of it was, I didn't understand how to answer this. Not this, but the additional aspect that he threw onto it. And I said, could you show me? After I said, you know, I'm kind of lost. I don't really understand. Would you mind showing me how you would do this so I do understand? Don't ever leave there and say, especially in the whiteboard interview, because a lot of times they will keep pushing you until you fail. They will keep pushing you until you kind of give out, and because they want to see how you handle that. Can this guy make his code better? How deep is his knowledge of JavaScript? And they push me to that level, and it's okay to say, you know, I don't understand, or I don't know. Don't bullshit. And when you're there, say, would you mind showing me so I do understand, so I can learn, right? Because what they want, especially in a junior developer, someone who's passionate, someone who wants to learn. So I hope this helps you out about what to expect from an interview process. This is just one, but this is kind of this would be your most common interview process, at least for me. This has been my experience. I've had about 10 in-person interviews, and I've had about 30 phone interviews and 5 online interviews and stuff like that. It may seem a little intimidating, but really the in-person interviews, they really give you a better and more fair algorithm challenges. You could say what was here is much more fair. It's a little bit more stressful because you're doing it in front of other people, right? And I don't have any issue public speaking. It's something about being interviewed for me and like being in that environment. So that is my 2 cents about what to expect from a real world interview, right? I didn't obviously record this, but this is 30 minutes after I got done doing it. I hope you guys kind of know what to expect and are prepared for it, right? A lot of in-person interviews is just being prepared and knowing how to answer properly and honestly. So don't go in there with pre-recorded sort of talking points that aren't true. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, join our Facebook group, support me on Patreon. Let me know and let our subscribers know how your interview processes normally go, because I want people to learn from this. This is just my experience, right? This is just one guy. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out my 100 Algorithm Challenge course. Get you prepped for those technical interviews to make sure you get nice offers. I actually just added some new content to it so you can get prepared for those technical phone screens as well. There's a link in the description to get it for just $9.99.